this not lead us to another Mugabe situation? What would cause Bashir to actually ever give up the presidency if he knew that waiting for him as he packs his bags from the president's palace are police to take him over to The Hague? Have we not shot ourselves in the foot with this strategy?
We might have well done so, and we might have sent a dangerous precedent, because, again, the ICC has to be seen to be deemed to be fair. The accusation that's been placed on them is that they seem to be imposing it on weaker nations and developed nations who, for example, some people have been crying that maybe Bush and Blair should have faced the court for accusations of what may have happened in Iraq or Afghanistan. You know, there are some people who are mentioning things like that. So we don't have a fair system as to how it could actually be balanced out, and more affluent leaders like the ones I've just mentioned could be brought or even questioned, if at all.
And I think we have a system in the world where some countries are obviously ignored, regarded as insignificant. I mean, had this been Iraq, for example, where there's oil in Iraq, there would have been a completely different scenario. There would have been a will to go into the nation, a will to remove from power. But Sudan, that's not the case. Or Zimbabwe, for that matter.
But regime change, are you saying that, because that was the idea with Iraq, it was regime change, hasn't that been seen as a strategy that has been more flawed than anything else?
Well, I doubt that regime change was the idea with Iraq. I think it was oil.
You think it was oil? Mm. Oil or regime change?
I think it was a combination of the both. Oil, well, firstly, and again, regime change. Saddam had, in the eyes of the West, that is, was seen as a liability, and they wanted to get rid of him. And of course, Bush 1, that's George Bush's father, had tried and not got the job done. And of course, his son, who'd come into power back then 10 years ago, thought that it would be a good thing to do so. And of course, Britain was quite keen to support in that venture. And it's gone terribly wrong over time, as we've seen. Thousands of people have lost their lives, large displacement, and the country doesn't look right currently anyway. And of course, when you think about Afghanistan, not looking too good as well. So,
But I don't think that, for myself, regime change, if that was the main desire, then we would be moving into North Korea, we'd be moving into other countries of the world, Burma perhaps, and Zimbabwe. I think there has to be a motive from the West which is more ulterior than just regime change.
Moving to home, just before this broadcast, we had the news of not just killing of soldiers at the barracks in Northern Ireland, but the first policeman killed in Northern Ireland for 12 years, raising the question of whether the Troubles have come back to Northern Ireland. We've had, obviously, Pastor Noble, we've been around the world seeing atrocities. For instance, lately the Pakistani cricket atrocity. We've seen in Mumbai the bombs there. We've seen ongoing situations in Iraq and Afghanistan. But now, back on British soil, we're having sniper fire and bomb blasts back in Northern Ireland. Is this a spirit that is moving around the world, or what is happening here?
Actually, there's a problem with the ideology of the power snatching and try to dominate the society. It's not only a problem in Pakistan, because there's a lack of trust and confidence, because the way the world is dominating the developed countries, like we were talking about the Iran and Afghanistan and Iraq. Of course, there's a problem with the regime, but there's a problem with the oil as well. And the Christianity is becoming threat to the non-Christian community throughout the world. That's why we are having problem in Pakistan, in UK. You can see what's happening in the street here in UK. One of our friend, well, he's a wonderful evangelist, and he said that somebody put the gun on his head. You know, there was.
But do you? Sorry to cut you. But do you see the Irish situation being related to a Christian persecution situation, which we're going to come to later in the show, or what do you think has fueled this new upsurge in violence, or is this just a blip? Is this just 2 or 3 crazy guys calling themselves the real IRA, or has something fundamentally changed in the political landscape of Northern Ireland?
Well, they reckon that there are 300 dissidents who are part of the real IRA and other dissident factions and groups in Northern Ireland, which is not a large number to actually to investigate or to keep an eye on. Resources have been removed from Northern Ireland, and a lot of those have been transferred to Iraq and Afghanistan. I think that with regards to Northern Ireland, I hope with all of my heart that we're not returning back to the days of the 70s, the 80s, early 90s, because the next step on from that is that it comes onto mainland Britain as well, London, and I can remember what that was like in the times of the IRA. But I do believe that we could deal with this quickly and nip this in the bud. The intelligence must be there to know who these people are and who did this bomb. And I believe the actual original IRA, Sinn Féin, they know who's involved in this, and I would like to see them speak out more clearly against it, and to be able to actually give some intelligence to the police to enable us to find those who did these crimes.
Gerry Adams, when the barracks were attacked, was not that forthright in his condemnation of this act. He seems to have said a little bit more with the police situation. Sinn Féin, do they really, have they really put away the gun and the support of the gun and the IRA, or do you think they are shadow dancing, as it were?
Well, I think Sinn Féin, I think they've come through the process of peace, clearly. The Good Friday Agreement was testified to that. But I think clearly there are elements within the IRA who would otherwise want to do business via the barrel of a gun, clearly. And there's that split within the IRA, and they've got these new little groups, and clearly this is one of them. As to how developed they are, as to how clever they are, as to how much of anarchy they would like to bring to the streets of Britain is questionable. However, what we've seen in the last couple of days is reflective of how the IRA would have developed themselves previously. Thankfully, we've only seen odd shooting here and there. It could be worse. I think it also tells us that it's highly possible that the IRA is evolving. Into what, we're not quite clear, you know, and over time we may see exactly what it is. But Gerry Adams, Ian Paisley and others have criticised it, and as you said, he could have been slightly more vocal, but not, you know, it's highly possible that he thought and may be concerned that these elements are probably problematic at this junction, and just trying to play it safe.
I want to turn to a couple of other issues before we run out of time, because we're going to devote the second half of the show to the vexing question of Christian persecution around the world. We've got that special report from Nigeria that's going to come on in a few moments' time. But before we do that, I want to celebrate women. You see that coming from Brother Ayo there. It has been International Women's Day quite recently, yes. And around the world have been some great initiatives. And in fact, we saw in Africa that many of the nations gave over the editorship of their biggest daily newspapers to women for the first time, and there have been other initiatives around the world. Tell us a little bit more. I see a big smile on your face.
Yes,
it's as if you know something about this.
Well, it's Women's Day is fantastic. It could be celebrated in the fashion you've mentioned, but the issues are quite serious, and we've got to appreciate them, especially on the African continent, where we have a lot of poor people. It means that women's lives are burdened excessively. They work from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, especially in rural Africa. They're burdened by domestic chores, burdened by other activities, and it means that they're not being able to engage with the system enough for them to develop and evolve as much as men. The problem stems from family settings, and it's more so because a lot of rural African families do not invest in their female daughters, simply because the perception is if they put too much energy into them and resources, they would more than likely leave the village or leave their homes and take that resource with them.